Cedar Fair is, in my opinion, the #1 amusement park chain in the world when it comes to roller coasters. Between the 11 Cedar Fair parks located across North America, there are 127 different coasters in operation, with many more under construction. What I want to do today is rank my 15 favorite roller coasters out of the 127 currently at Cedar Fair parks. And contrary to the Six Flags list, I've had the opportunity to visit each and every single one of these amusement parks, meaning this is my definitive list. What I love so much about this company is even their smallest parks tend to have that standout ride that draws people in from around the world. Oftentimes, I feel like you can't say that about some of those rather neglected Six Flags parks. What this means is there's going to be a wide array of Cedar Fair parks featured in this video, not just the big boys that get all the talk. Before we dive in, I would like to give an honorable mention to Top Thrill Dragster, which previously operated at Cedar Point from 2003 to 2021. Since you can no longer experience this attraction, I felt it wasn't fair for me to include it in this list. But I do look forward to writing the reimagined Top Thrill 2 later this year. Alright, let's waste no more time then and talk about my number 15 coaster, Prowler at Worlds of Fun. And I'm so glad this one was able to sneak its way on this list because I feel it's often overlooked in the world of GCIs. For those of you who don't know, Great Coasters International is a wooden coaster manufacturer, and I'd say is Cedar Fair's second closest relationship behind Bolliger and Mabyard, otherwise known as B&M. What I love about this ride is its compact layout working its way through the terrain, packing in so many whippy airtime moments and bank turns. Prowler isn't the largest attraction out there, but don't judge this book by its cover. Number 14, Renegade at Valley Fair. A GCI I rank slightly higher is Renegade, the headlining attraction at one of Cedar Fair's original amusement parks, Valley Fair. This one may not utilize the terrain quite like Prowler does, but its layout is equally as strong, if not stronger, due to these low-to-the-ground turns. They really allow Renegade to maintain a great speed throughout the layout, and as well as that, it's got lots of great airtime. One of my more controversial takes in this video is that number 13 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. For many, this would rank inside their top 10, maybe top 5. But personally, I got off thinking it had been relatively overrated. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very well done coaster, however I only slightly prefer it to the other GCIs we've talked about thus far, and it's not my favorite ride in this park. In many ways, it just feels like a souped up version of Prowler, mainly in the sense that it's remarkably smooth and fluid. It's a super enjoyable experience with a beautiful setting, but I couldn't find it in me to place it any higher than 13. Number 12, RailBlazer at California's Great America. The first of 3 roller coasters by Rocky Mountain Construction, or shortened to RMC in the Cedar Fair chain, is RailBlazer. This is the only single rail coaster at any of their parks, and it is a spectacular ride. This is the original Raptor layout with the original transition, so it is a stupidly intense experience that you're hard-pressed to catch your breath on. But it isn't without its flaws, because the trains aren't the most comfortable and the layout is very short, hence why it couldn't go any higher on my list. Number 11, Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. One of the greatest wooden roller coasters in the world. I'm so grateful to have this thing so close to home. But I think it's the fact that I've ridden Ghost Rider so many times that's maybe the reason it doesn't reach my top 10. I've been able to experience it under so many different conditions, and when it's running slower, it can be a tad underwhelming. But when it's fast, this is an absolutely unreal experience between its airtime, laterals, and all-around quick pacing. Plus, if you've been able to get a night ride on this thing, that might be one of the coolest experiences on a roller coaster in the Cedar Fair chain. Number 10, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. The original B&M Giga Coaster doubles as the tallest and fastest roller coaster in Canada. This thing is a speed demon, and if you're in the front row, it feels like your face is going to be ripped off. I absolutely love the pacing of this attraction minus the final few elements, but it's nowhere near enough to take away from the experience. Leviathan's got an outstanding first drop, diving 306 feet towards the ground, and is the first of many Giga Coasters you'll see on this list. Cedar Fair is the only amusement park chain that's built multiple of this type of attraction, and another one of their examples is Orion at Kings Island at the number 9 spot. I know some coaster enthusiasts like to give this ride hate because it didn't turn out as good as some other Gigas we'll talk about, but when you compare it to something like Leviathan, I think it's just as good, if not a little better. And the main reason I say that is I think Orion has the better airtime. There's 2 distinct moments that really took me by surprise, not even to mention the massive first drop. I for one have always loved Orion, and for me it's easily the best roller coaster at my second favorite Cedar Fair park, Kings Island. Number 8, Gold Striker at California's Great America. This might come as a surprise to many, but Gold Striker is my favorite GCI not only in the chain, but in the entire country. I've stood by that since my first rides in 2021 when this thing was running exceptionally well throughout the layout. But I recently had the chance to get back here and ride it some more and felt the exact same way about it. Gold Striker's pacing is just phenomenal. It really combines the best of what GCI has to offer on rides like Renegade and Mystic Timbers. Great pacing, great airtime, and it's not too rough either. Number 7, Shivering Timbers at Michigan's Adventure. In my opinion, the most underrated roller coaster at any Cedar Fair park, Shivering Timbers doesn't seem to get as much love as these other rides, likely because it is at the worst park in the chain that's located out in the middle of nowhere. But if you do make the trip, you won't be disappointed solely because this is a beast of a wooden coaster. It may only stand 122 feet tall, but it looks a lot larger because the layout is enormous. It's able to facilitate more than 5,300 feet of length because it doesn't lose much speed on turns. It's a true out and back layout that was executed to perfection, just absolutely loaded with airtime. Number 6, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. Perhaps the most famous roller coaster across the Cedar Fair parks, Millennium Force isn't just iconic, but it's an amazing ride experience. It gets some of that similar hate that Orion does, maybe because it doesn't have the most inspired layout, but it doesn't need it. The speed and pacing here is astounding. I also find the airtime to be underrated, as there's 4 great moments sprinkled throughout the layout. It's a super long ride at more than 6,500 feet in length, and that length really allows it to stand out in this park. Number 5, Maverick at Cedar Point. Non-coaster enthusiasts might look at this thing and be confused as to how it made it so high, but the story of Maverick is incredible, how this minuscule 100-foot coaster turned out even better than its older brother 3 times its size. There's many things you can point to with Maverick, but my favorite thing about it is the variety. I just think it's amazing how you have this many airtime moments, inversions, and whippy transitions come together to create a full package ride experience. It's a fantastic coaster, but there's still 4 I rank higher, including Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. This really could have gone either way at 4 or 5, but where it lacks in variety, it excels in quality. If it weren't for one other ride we'll talk about, this would easily have the most ejector airtime of any coaster in the Cedar Fair chain. I love how RMC flips you out in so many different directions to get you up out of your seat, because the execution really was perfect. And before we get to the top 3, if you've enjoyed this video so far, be sure to drop a like, and if you'd like to support the channel, subscribing and picking up something from my new merchandise store is the best way to do so. Now let's talk about my 3 favorite Cedar Fair roller coasters, all of which reside inside my top 10 overall favorites. Number 3, Fury 325 at Carowinds. Let me just say, there's a reason this has won the Golden Ticket Award for Best Steel Coaster 8 years in a row. Even though there's a few others I may prefer, this is about as perfect as a roller coaster gets. It takes Leviathan and Orion, accentuating the best qualities of those rides, and throwing in some amazing low-to-the-ground bank curves. The speed and airtime you feel on these things is amazing, and during the rest of the ride experience as well. It's all the more enjoyable too because Fury is about as smooth and comfortable as possible. There's a little you can do to make this one better, and I'll always have a soft spot for it. But at number 2 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. And I think a lot of people probably expected this to rank at number 1, and objectively it might be the best coaster in the Cedar Fair chain. I may have a favorite I slightly prefer to Steel Vengeance, but don't let that take away from the fact that this is a phenomenal attraction. It contains more airtime than any other ride in the world, more than 27 seconds, and I believe it. But it also mixes in some inversions and fast-paced transitions, plus I love how you spend virtually the entire second half weaving in and out of the ride structure. Steel Vengeance is absolutely a top 3 coaster for me, and it's done a great job holding onto that ranking for the past 5 years. And now coming in at number 1 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. To many, I don't think this would be the best coaster across the Cedar Fair parks, but there's something to be said about the insanity that is this layout. Unlike the other Giga coasters, Intimidator rockets down 300 feet and then spends most of its ride time staying low to the ground and whipping through these tight transitions so hard. I've never seen a roller coaster maintain its speed this well, nor have I lost my vision like I have on I-305. For all these reasons and more, I believe it's the most intense roller coaster in the world and my favorite in the Cedar Fair chain. But I understand your opinions may differ from mine, so be sure to drop your Cedar Fair rankings in the comments for me to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.